Welcome to today's Explainer. I want you to picture this. It's the African savanna, nearly 2 million years ago. The sun is going down, and there's a small child standing alone at the edge of a prehistoric camp. Their mother is gone, their father is gone. Now, in our modern world, we'd have social workers, right? Adoption agencies, legal safety nets, the whole shebang. But back then, in this totally unforgiving environment, none of that exists. There isn't even a written language yet. There's just a vulnerable child. Predators out in the dark, food is never a guarantee, and a simple twisted ankle can literally be a death sentence.
So what actually happens to this child? It's a pretty dramatic mystery, isn't it? For the longest time, the picture we painted of prehistoric life was just brutally simple. The strong survived, and the weak perished. End of story. But as we unpack the source material today, we're going to see that the physical and anthropological evidence tells a wildly different, and honestly, a much more beautiful story.
Section 1. The Prehistoric Orphan Problem, a Survival Challenge.
Okay, let's dive right into this. To get why an orphan child was such a massive evolutionary hurdle, we really have to compare ourselves to other species. Think about a newborn wildebeest. Within minutes, literally minutes, it is standing up and getting ready to run with the herd. A lot of animals hit independence incredibly fast, but humans, we are completely different. A human kid is intensely dependent on adults for years. For us, just learning how to walk doesn't even come close to guaranteeing survival.
A human child had to learn how to track down safe food, figure out which plants were toxic, craft tools from scratch, evade predators, and navigate complex social groups. If a kid's biological parents were wiped out by disease or an accident, they simply could not learn those crucial survival skills on their own. They desperately needed backup.
Moving on to Section 2, the Human Backup System, Cooperative Survival.
Well, fortunately for that kid on the savannah, our ancient ancestors had an incredible built-in safety net. Anthropologists call this cooperative breeding. And it's basically an evolutionary strategy where people other than the biological mother step in to help raise the kids. So instead of one exhausted mom doing absolutely everything, you've got fathers, siblings, extended family, and friends all pitching in to share the heavy lifting of childcare.
Now, what's really interesting here is this concept of alloparents. These are additional caregivers in a community who help raise a child, even if they aren't closely biologically related. And we actually see this in action today. Researchers looking at hunter-gatherer groups, like the Aka people of Central Africa, have documented this highly shared approach to parenting. So if an infant's mother suddenly passes away, that child isn't just tossed into a crowd of strangers. They are already surrounded by alloparents who have held them, fed them, and protected them since day one.
And among all these alloparents, one figure stands out absolutely massively. The grandmother hypothesis is this fascinating theory suggesting human females evolved to live long past their reproductive years for one specific reason: to help feed and care for their grandchildren using all their accumulated life experience. Research on the Hadza people of Tanzania shows that grandmothers hold this invaluable encyclopedic knowledge of the landscape and seasonal foods. If a prehistoric mom died, the grandmother was already deeply invested, instantly becoming one of the most vital caregivers that orphan had.
Which brings us to Section 3, Evidence in the Bones, Prehistoric Proof.
We aren't just relying on behavioral theories here. We actually have the hard, physical proof buried right in the archaeological record. Consider these incredible discoveries. First up, an individual known as Burial 9, from the prehistoric site of Man Bac in Vietnam. His skeleton shows severe physical impairments that crippled his mobility for years. And then there's Shanidar 1, a Neanderthal found in Iraq who survived for years after suffering massive debilitating injuries. In a world where just getting your next meal required enormous physical effort, there was no way either of these guys survived completely on their own.
But here's the thing. They survived. Someone brought them food. Someone kept them safe from predators. Someone became their hands and feet. And here is the big logical takeaway for us. If these prehistoric communities were willing to provide that kind of intense, long-term care to injured adults, you can bet for sure they cared for vulnerable orphan children who literally represented the future of their group.
Let's look at Section 4, the Cooperative Advantage, Rethinking Survival.
And this brilliantly illustrates a huge flaw in how we usually think about the ancient world. It completely flips survival of the fittest on its head. Think about it. If you compare a selfish group to a cooperative group, the contrast is mind-blowing. In the selfish group, injured hunters are left behind, the wisdom of lost elders just vanishes, and orphan kids perish. But in the cooperative group, hunters get help, elders share their knowledge, and orphans are seamlessly absorbed by the community. So when things get tough, which group survives? The cooperative one. Survival of the fittest? Actually, scratch that. It was really survival of the most cooperative.
This creates what we can call expanding circles of care. Genetic research from the 34,000-year-old Sungir site over in Russia proves that these communities weren't just tiny, isolated families hiding in caves. They had huge, interconnected social networks. A child's safety net started with grandma, expanded out to aunts and uncles, stretched to distant cousins, and even bridged over to entirely different camps across the landscape. If one small group couldn't feed an orphan, the kid could just move to a connected group. No adoption paperwork, no bureaucracy, just deeply rooted human relationships.
Finally, Section 5, the real survival secret, humanity's superpower.
Let's ground all this science in a real human story. Imagine a 7-year-old girl. Let's call her Nara. Her mom dies from a bad infection, and a few months later, her dad doesn't make it back from a hunt. Nara is entirely orphaned. But watch what her community does. It organically reorganizes around her. Her grandmother gives her a warm place to sleep. Her aunt makes sure she has safe food to eat. An older cousin keeps an eye on her by the dangerous river. And her dad's best friend steps up to teach her how to survive. There's no big town hall meeting. The community just naturally absorbs her, turning a devastating tragedy into an act of collective survival.
So what does this all mean? It means we had each other. Let's go back one last time to that kid standing alone by the fire on the savannah. They aren't left behind. The community steps up. You know, our ancestors didn't take over the globe because we were the biggest, the fastest, or the strongest. We didn't have massive fangs or armor. Our absolute greatest evolutionary superpower was, and still is, our extraordinary social bonds.
Long before the concept of adoption was even a word in any language, early humans had already mastered its most profound truth: a child doesn't have to survive alone. And if our entire species was built on this incredible ancient foundation of shared care, how might that change the way we look at our responsibility to the vulnerable children in our own communities today?